As global travel patterns evolve, it's become essential to integrate air and rail systems into a seamless, sustainable, but also passenger-focused journey. And it's essential not only for airports, but also for operators and policymakers alike. In our next roundtable, as you'll see, our guests are key stakeholders in various sectors playing a pivotal role in the future of how people move. Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome. Welcome to the Groupe ADP and Heathrow Air Rail Conference here at the headquarters of Groupe ADP. My name is Julia Seeger. I'm a tech and science editor at the French international TV station France 24. It's a pleasure for me to be here. As you know, Heathrow is an association that has established and actively represents a unique community within air rail, and they're facilitating the exchange of experience, ideas, but also information, and offering genuine insight, but also best practices to all of their membership and, of course, to airports. So on behalf of Groupe ADP, but also Heathrow, who I think is thrilled to be back here in Paris. The last time I heard, they were here in 1993 for another conference, so welcome back to them. And on behalf of Groupe ADP, a very warm welcome indeed to all of you. So we're going to start with a high-level discussion on the future of intermodal passenger travel as global travel patterns evolve, integrating air and rail systems into a seamless but also sustainable and passenger-focused journey has become a strategic priority. And it has been for airports, but also operators and policymakers alike. And as you'll see in just a moment, our distinguished panelists today represent key stakeholders from aviation, rail, but also mobility sectors, each playing a pivotal role in shaping how people will move in the future. For this conversation, I'm very pleased to welcome on stage Pierre Abraham, Deputy Director of Paris-Charles de Gaulle Groupe ADP. Thank you for joining us. I'd also like to ask Chris Jones, Strategy and Business Delivery Lead at Heathrow Express, to come join us on stage. Erin Trapp, also Deputy Executive Director for Major Events and Strategy at Los Angeles World Airports. Please do take a seat. Welcome. And Gauthier, Executive Vice President, Transformation and Sustainable Development at Air France. First of all, a very warm welcome indeed to all of you. We have a great panel here, and we'll be opening up to questions later on during the discussion. Let's begin by exploring how intermodality is transforming the travel experience, and then in a second, we'll also be talking about the future, how you see things in the decade to come. I'd like to start, perhaps, I'm going to turn to Christian first. Let's talk about sustainability. It's clearly at the heart of transport planning. How do you see air rail links contributing to greener travel, and perhaps what are the concrete examples and actions that your organization is taking to reduce emissions across the passenger journey?
Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation. I'm very pleased to attend and participate to this conference. So thank you to Groupe ADP and Heathrow for these invitations. So coming back to your questions, well, let's first come back to what is today our overall decarbonization journey. As you may know, as an airline, we are strongly committed for the net zero ambitions targeting 2050. This journey is now settled around the four key pillars. The first one is our fleet renewal, so we are really pushing hard on that direction. That's one of our key focus for the time being, investing a lot in new aircraft. We aim at least having 70% of new aircraft, new generations by 2030. By introducing them, we will decrease quite a lot our emissions. So that's an important first pillar. The second one is about eco-piloting, which both for the flight and the ground operations for our aircraft. That's also an area where, in particular on ground, require lots of cooperations between, in particular, airlines and airports. The third one is, of course, the sustainable aviation fuel, which we know will be more and more important while we are progressing in this journey. But least and not last, I think it's important to mention that we have also introduced in our journey what we call also evolution of our business model. And by saying that, I'm of course thinking of the fact that progressively we see more and more passengers eager to move from air type of experience to a train air experience. And so leveraging as much as possible intermodality as to improve the experience, and also in that way also reducing their emissions. So that's one of our the way we see intermodality as an important pillar in our decarbonization journey. But I think I'd like also to mention some other drivers, which is the fact that we are also seeing some regulations that are also forcing that way. Important to mention that in particular in France, some regulations have started to ban some flights when we see, in particular for local traffic, where it exists some opportunities to take train, in particular for distance which are affordable within the 2 hours 30 minutes, for instance.
Pierre, on this question of sustainability.
Yeah, we are, first of all, I'm really glad to have all of you in our airport, and then welcome to all of you. Indeed, we must provide the good tool for our clients to make the move to a greener activities. And we just had a period of 3 months of published consultation about the future of CDG Airport, in which the train, the intermodality was at the heart of our strategic, at the heart of our new master plan. We based part of our development around the train station. We have the chance to have one train station in the center of CDG. We have the chance as well to have new offer in the coming 5 years with a direct train to Paris, CDG Express in 2027, with a link with the North Railway Network as well in 2027. And in 2030, we will integrate the Grand Paris with a direct metro, link 17 of the metro that will come directly in the heart of CDG. Then, of course, it's important to make the condition to have 2 times more traffic by 2030, even 3 times more travelers at the train station by 2050. Then it's a big challenge, but it's also really the new story that we are talking about for passenger to reach the airport without also the traffic jam, without the negative impact on the neighborhoods, but also for our staff. We have 90,000 people working at the airport that needs to join the airport. Then it's also for them to improve the mobility and to create the link with all employment area around the airport. And the last is to offer to the territory a platform, an exchange platform for different way, not only to take the plane, but also to have a connection between train and train, rail and rail opportunities. And we are at the center of a new strategic vision for the future.
Chris, I'm turning towards you as well. You're, as I said, strategy and business delivery lead at Heathrow Express on this question of sustainability as well.
I just want to say thank you for the warm welcome. This is my first time at this conference, my first time at this airport, so thank you, everybody. I think I will start with setting up where Heathrow currently is. So we are already recognised as one of the most connected airports in Europe in terms of public transport. We have what is UK's busiest bus and coach station, but we also have 3 major rail lines serving the airport. So we have London Underground's Piccadilly line, we have the Elizabeth line, opened recently, and then we have the railway that I operate, the Heathrow Express. That is already a huge portion of our mode share, but in our expansion proposals, we're actually looking to increase the number of passengers arriving at the airport by about 40 million per year, which is a huge amount of people. We're going to do this through a number of steps. So we're proposing basically a new set of rail links to the airport that will expand the areas in the country you can reach the airport. So currently, you can reach the airport very easily from central London, so from London Paddington or on the Piccadilly line. However, if you're in the west of England or Wales or you're south of the airport, it's actually quite difficult to get there on public transport. In our proposals, we're working with the government and other partners to set out potential options for how we would build rail links out to the south and out to the west and out to Wales also. And on top of that, part of our expansion considerations are what do we do with the centre of the airport, so that's central transport hub, that's where 2 of our rail stations currently are and the bus station, so that is going to be entirely redeveloped to make a much more seamless passenger flow to enable that 40 million more passengers to come through.
And freshly in from Los Angeles is Erin. Thank you so much for being with us. I think you must be jet lagged, so thank you indeed on this question of sustainability. And I'd just like to add that I think it's going to be a fascinating conversation because we're going to be hearing about what the plans are for the Olympics coming up in Los Angeles in 2028 and what actually happened here in Paris. So we're going to be able to have that dual conversation. Erin, on this question of sustainability and what you're doing right now to ensure.
Absolutely, thank you, and thank you again to Groupe ADP and to the IRO for including us in the conversation. Yes, we're learning a lot from Paris, what happened in the Olympics, and look forward to welcoming hopefully many of you to Los Angeles in 2028, if not before. But on the topic of sustainability, I don't think Los Angeles is known as a place where people are excited about riding buses and trains as much as driving in cars. And so we have an enormous challenge in front of us to try to change that modality into one that supports a more sustainable environmental future. At LAX, the biggest missing piece of the puzzle is the ability to connect our system to the public bus and train systems that exist. And so we have 2 major things I would mention in terms of sustainability. One is next year we'll deliver the, I think, 3-year behind, $6 billion rail link that will take people from the terminal all the way to the metro and as well as the freeway system, hoping to reduce passenger vehicle into the airport by at least 30%, so a very significant savings in terms of emissions. And then the second is, as you already mentioned, Julia, is the Olympics. The 2028 Olympics will be building on the legacy of Paris and others to be a no-build Olympics, so adaptive reuse for the venues, or in some cases reusing venues that were used first in 1932 for Olympics, so that's fun. But also a car-free Olympics. So in a city that loves its car more than just about anything, how do we move all of the visitors between venues without using passenger vehicles? So LA is really at the forefront, I would say, of sustainability, and LAX is trying to be a good partner, despite some pretty significant headwinds with changes in federal policy and other things that are going on.
Now, when we talk about policy and investment priorities, they're clearly shifting towards climate goals. What regulatory incentives do you think, or public policies, are the most effective, perhaps, in supporting sustainable air-rail integration?
Well, maybe before coming to that question, I think it's important to remind that, as far as France and Europe is concerned, it's true that today we have already lots of tax and regulations that is there to trigger and to push for further decarbonizations, in particular in transport and furthermore in aviation. So we have already lots of framework in place. So just before, I've mentioned in particular this specific French law that is part of the what we call the climate and resilience law that is banning some of our flight in order to favor train. I think it's quite specific compared to what exists in some other country. On top of that, we have also, like many other industry, some obligations to buy some carbon credits to compensate our emissions in Europe. So that's in Europe what we call the ETS, which is a start to cover put that to support a lot of cost for emissions. So in principle, I think it's it's triggering in the right direction for decarbonization journey. So it's push all the industry to really move forward. But I have to say that one of the issue that we are facing is that all those funds that are built up through this tax today are not really used for helping the decarbonization of the aviations. Sometimes it goes to some other sectors, and sometimes it goes also to the train industry. For instance, that's the case in France. So it's not an issue by itself, but of course, as aviation industry, we are really eager to get some support to make it happen, because we are really in a sector that is recognized as very hard to abate. Anyway, I think anything that can be done to favor the intermodality is also, of course, welcome. And in particular, it's true that we are pushing hard also jointly with Aéroports de Paris, SNCF, in particular to create the proper infrastructures. And there, definitely, public support are necessary, because there we are, talking about essential infrastructures that really need to be seen as not kind of private investments, but more the way we want to design our future cities and countries.
So there's a huge need for cooperation, Pierre.
Yeah, and we can also see the regulation as a need. I will take the example for sustainable aviation fuel, where the European mandate will force the airlines to put the SAF, then it forces the demand, which will force the production of this SAF, and it has a positive impact to accelerate our decarbonization, and then it must be seen as an help to accelerate, even if always we try to keep the right balance to remain competitive at the international level, because Europe will be very strict on the regulation, but we are in competition with Middle East or other airport airlines, and we need to remain at the right level of competitiveness. Then it's what we are trying to create, the good condition of acceleration of decarbonization.
So we just looked at the framework in Europe. What is it like in the United States now?
Well, in the United States, we have relied for a long time on subsidies, on financial incentives from the federal government, the state government in some cases. And we are discovering now the limitations of that. Obviously, as elected officials change, policies can change. And I think there's a growing recognition that consumer demand is going to be one of the key factors in driving sustainable policies. In California, we also have a carbon market, the California Air Resources Board, and yet those things can be, those can be changed based on whomever is in office. But the one thing that seems to be quite sustainable is consumer demand for sustainable products, sustainable solutions, and people are willing to invest in it. So I would say the big innovation that we are having is that you can't always rely on federal subsidies or legislation, but you need to follow your market and follow your consumer.
So you're talking about customer demand, but passenger experience, and you've all said that this is one of the key driving force for change going forward. Passenger expectations are clearly shifting rapidly. What are you seeing on the ground, and what are the biggest shifts perhaps in how travelers want to move between air and rail?
So we try to create the condition to ease the journey, to smooth the journey between the train and the plane. And we started to have a big input before the Olympic Games with our partners, Air France, SNCF, which is the highway national operator. And for the Olympic Games, we changed the old signage within the train station. Which was a first step in our ambition. But we also changed the condition for disabled person for them to be taken from the train to the plane without understanding that it's not the same operator which is taking care of them. And we are also trying to develop additional service such as baggage handling from city center to the airport to reach the airport without carrying big baggage. Then it's the first step that we can do on the shorter term to fit with the expectation of our clients.
What is your experience, Chris, when it comes to Heathrow Express?
On Heathrow more broadly, since COVID, what we've seen is a big shift in our actual market. So now it's around 70% of our passengers are actually leisure passengers. So we've seen a very big change in the passengers that are using both our airport and our rail services. And this gives us some interesting peaks and troughs, such as school holidays are much greater demand. However, that's usually families. They're after very different things than the passengers were before. And then if we look at Heathrow Express more directly, since the opening of the Elizabeth line, which the Elizabeth line is slightly cheaper than Heathrow Express, we have seen quite a large abstraction of passengers who are, I use the phrase, in the more cost-sensitive market. They're more interested in the price. That is the dominating factor that they consider when booking their ticket. They have moved to the Elizabeth line. We still maintain Heathrow Express around 6 or 7% of mode share to the airport, which sounds like a reasonably small number, but that's still around 13,500, 14,000 passengers a day. And these are people who are prepared to pay. They're interested in the luxury side of things. So that's one of the markets I really want to lean into. So it's about what are those additional products that we can offer. So between the higher experience service on our train, once they arrive at the airport, what are those additional bolt-ons that we can give them to basically make their journey as seamless as possible?
Christian, you were talking about the distinction between local traffic and transit traffic.
Indeed, when we talk about how do we see some customer behavior evolutions, indeed, I think it's good to make distinctions between our local and transfer passengers. So talking about local, it's clear that this is where we see the bigger shift in the last years, in particular with what we call our domestic traffic towards the from Paris towards the French main cities. And in particular, I would say since post-COVID, we have seen different kind of evolutions. First, it's true that in particular, before we had lots of daily return, and of course with remote activity, remote meetings, we have seen lots of evolutions. Of course, train for those destinations. We have the chance in France to have from Paris to main cities. High-speed train, which is offering indeed a quite competitive product. And also, that's also part, I think, of the sustainability drivers. Some big corporate company are also making their own travel policy evolving, in particular favoring for their employees on train versus plane for some destinations. So in that context, of course, we need to adapt, and as an airline, we are also making our network evolve. Talking about Air France, in particular, starting from next March 2026, we will make a major step because we used to have a major activities operation from Orly towards those destinations, and now we will reconcentrate all our Air France activities from CDG, concentrating on transfer passengers, on long-haul traffic. So that's clearly an important evolution in our business model due to this evolution of the customer behavior. Now, first looking of the passenger who are today traveling in connections, using a flight to come for their connection and then taking, for instance, a long haul. For the time being, we do not see that much evolutions, and I think the main reason is that we have not yet, reached the point where our intermodality product is at the level of what they may expect. Even if we are jointly with SNCF and Aéroport de Paris, we are really working hard to work on the different dimensions to really increase the attractivities and the awareness of this product. But obviously it's not yet there, and I think for us what is the most significant is that when we look at of the passengers arriving by train in CDG and taking a flight then like a long haul, I think we should count 2 million passengers a year that are arriving by train at CDG, and only 10% are using combined ticket. So there we have a huge potentials, and it's really our ambitions to make them proposing the kind of offer, the kind of product, the kind of seamless experience they are aiming for.
Seamless experience is really the key word there. Erin, on this question, did you want to add something?
Well, I could just add that Los Angeles is one of the largest O&D markets in the world. Very few transfer passengers, unlike here. So when people are coming to Los Angeles, they tend to be coming to stay for a while. And we're also one of the most iconic airports in the world. We've been in more movies and television shows than any other airport. when people arrive in LA, they expect it to feel a little bit glamorous, and our airport doesn't always feel a little bit glamorous, particularly when you're talking about the intermodality and the connectivity to other systems. So our goal is to both enhance the experience when you're at the airport, so people will feel more like the glamour of LA, but also have an elevated experience when they're connecting to rail or bus or whatever it might be. You know, it can be a pleasant experience or it can be a challenging experience, and we need to recognize that the whole journey reflects on our airport, not just the travel within the airport. Currently, it's very congested. It's very dominated by personal vehicles, and we need to help people understand that train and other modalities are actually a way to improve the experience, not detract from it.
Now, we've seen in the last few years the rise, of course, of low-cost carriers, budget train carriers as well. In that context, how can air rail really, ensure more accessibility, more affordability to a wider range of people?
As mentioned before, I think indeed we need to start from what the customer is looking for in terms of experience. So first, it's all about today, when we look on what airlines or train are proposing to their customers, it's more and more a quite wide offer, a wide digital experience. But when we start to talk about combining tickets between train on airlines, this experience about the full digitalizations from booking to customer journey until the irregularities, disruptions management. We are not yet there, and so I think that should start from there, from what the customer is expecting for, and I would say the same also from the experience he may have physically at the airport, because sometimes moving from the railway stations to the boarding gate, it's quite a long journey, including also for the luggage, including for all the services around. So all those dimensions, I think we need all together, all the parties involved need to work hard to really tackle all those, all what the customer is expecting. And we have some huge challenge there because it's we are of different company, different type of system, different type of also on the way we design our operations. That's something we have been discussing all together, but it's I think we have all in mind that, for instance, when we talk about booking windows, we are not at all aligned. On an airline, we are used to have a kind of a 12 months booking windows, and we know that for train is a lot smaller. So typically, this is the kind of things that at the end pay a lot when we start to design a proper journey. And I think the good news for us is that these kind of things we really start to have been able to manage jointly with SNCF, but still a long way to go.
Yeah, and we start from this expectation to think the new infrastructure. Then I was talking about the airport of the future. It will include a new terminal at the door of the train station with all the flows that are created by design to ease this journey, to close up the checking area from the train, and to help people to better understand the spaces, the flow, and if possible to reduce the walk distance as well, as much as possible in such a huge airport. Then it's by design these expectations that are helping us to build the future. And in a shorter term, we during the public consultation, we discover with our partners that we have already several offers which exist, which are efficient, but which are not known by the public. And they discover that we already have some answers, some products, some services. I mentioned some 3 services. It exists, but it's not yet totally included in the way of purchasing the travel. Then we need all together to put it in the mind of people, and that it becomes yeah, the first reaction to buy this kind of combined tickets.
So we were just mentioning digitalization a minute ago, but I'm just wondering, we now have artificial intelligence, we have data analytics, we have the possibility to share information real time. And it's really revolutionizing mobility in a big way. I'm going to turn to Chris, because I think in another life you were a former signaling engineer, so you've really seen the before and after. How has it changed, mobility, and how can AI and real-time data improve, let's say, scheduling, ticketing, of course, and passenger flow?
Yeah, I was about a decade ago. I was a signaling engineer at London Underground, and I actually worked on the Piccadilly line. The Piccadilly line is inherently simple railway, but it was still quite complex in order to do the timetabling, do the junction management, that side of thing. The computers we had then, the average computers, they were great, but it's not the same as the computing power we have available now. If you then abstract that to Heathrow Airport, where let's just use the main line services, so the Elizabeth line and then Heathrow Express. So the Elizabeth line is one of the most complex railways in Britain. It goes through multiple different regions of the UK, including the central operating system that's automated. It then goes on to the Great Western Main Line, then into airport infrastructure. If you then combine that with Heathrow Express, has dedicated train paths going from Paddington into the central terminal area of Heathrow, then combine that with all of the trains that go in and out of Paddington to the west of the country and up to Wales, that's an enormously complex puzzle. It was quite iterative and manual before, how we timetabled this, how we set this up. And I've seen just in the last decade, the amount of computing power we have now, when we look at timetable, when we look at these new infrastructure interventions, such as potentially a Western Rail link, for instance, as I mentioned before, we can now use so much less time, energy and cost to optimize these systems using the power we have. And I think that's a tool that we are starting to utilize, but I really need to see us using it a lot more. I think it will make a huge difference in urban design, and it will massively improve the efficiencies of the services going to and from the airport and elsewhere in the country, in fairness. On the ticketing front, so the customer service thing, one area where Heathrow Express differentiates itself from normal trains is we pride ourselves on our customer service. It's one of the things you're paying for when you buy one of our tickets. We have people on board the trains. We have humans there to sell you tickets, to give you advice, to sell you onwards tours and attractions within London. But a large part of what we do also revolves around chatbots, because there's quite a lot of people who will now use our app or website, and inevitably there are issues. People make mistakes, they book trains in the wrong direction, they book on the wrong date, there's cancellations, there's disruption. We are starting to see an advent of AI chatbots that are actually able to deal with the customers in a much sleeker way, in a way that quite a lot of customers don't realise it's actually AI, which is interesting. Some of them do, but they're more than happy to speak to it because it's very competent. But it can also automate a lot of the processes, such as refunds, ticket changes, that side of thing that we previously had to do manually. There were a lot of manual admin interventions, and we had quite a lot of staff that a lot of their time was taken up in doing these things. Whereas now we're able to provide a better service to our customers, and they're also able to get a better outcome without impacting on our company resources. So it's win-win all around. And then just on the final point on data analysis, so I focus quite a lot on the commercial and the business side. Previously, we had a rough idea of where our revenue came from in terms of location, sales locations in the airport, but we never really drilled down into it and not really done any complex data analytics on this. And AI has really enabled us to do this now. So we've developed a heat map around our airport of every sales location where we have either a machine or a person selling tickets. So we're able to target particular markets. We then went wider. We looked at where are people buying our tickets around the entire country. So we found out that people are buying tickets for our service in Scotland, and there's even one person buying tickets on the Isle of Wight, an island off the south coast of England, in a ferry terminal. We're not sure why they're buying it, but now we have this data. We're able to do some analytics on it. We're able to go and investigate. Can we lean into these markets? Is there a service that we offer that these people really want? How can we grow that? We then extrapolated that further. We started to look at different target markets. So our passengers are O&D passengers. They're not transfer passengers. Some are, but we don't make any money from those because they can use the interterminal transfer for free. So we don't really focus on them in terms of marketing. But we started to look at where passengers are coming from, and not necessarily the aircraft they're on, but what's their nationality? What are are they interested in? So, for instance, some countries in the Asian market, they're much more prepared to pay for luxurious things. So it's about using advanced analytics on what flights are we expecting, when are they going to be in, what products do they want, and then basically just using the data we've always had appropriately, and the new computing that we have enables us to do this far more effectively.
Thank you very much. I'll turn to you, Christian, and to Pierre in just a minute, because I'd like to touch on the ONAX project. But first, Erin, I'd like to turn to you. And during our preliminary chat, you were saying you're publicly owned, so perhaps a little bit more lagging behind when it comes to technology, but you're really hoping that these Olympic Games will help you leap forward.
Yes, absolutely. We are not known for public transit in LA, and until very recently, your only option when you arrived at the airport was to get in a car. Perhaps we do have one bus service that would take you downtown, but we, as you mentioned, we are a publicly owned airport, and I'm not sure how it is in Europe, but government websites are not known as the best user experience in the United States. So already our website lags maybe a decade behind many others. So the opportunity that we have is to take our position of weakness, which is being a little bit behind in technology, and leverage both generative AI and even agentic AI to start collecting and using the data to help us serve a car-free Olympics, right? We've got 2.5 years to train the folks who don't want to ever get out of their cars to use the train and other modalities so that we can apply those lessons to the Olympics in 2028. But it really is operating from a position of, of a region that is large and diffuse without a significant public transit system for a long time that could draw upon significant intermodality, transforming it through the train project and others to one that would be like when you come to Paris. I would never dream of renting a car in Paris. It would be too scary to drive. And yet I can get anywhere I need to go, right? That's a very different mindset than we have in Los Angeles, but one we need to be able to adapt so that people can understand you could come, you get on a train, you'll go downtown, you'll walk, you'll do all the things you do in Paris in a way that will feel authentically Los Angeles. It's a large challenge, but a huge opportunity.
So, Christian and Pierre, tell us more about this IT project that's stirred by Groupe ADP, this IT project called ONAX.
Yeah, maybe before letting Pierre developing a little bit this initiative, I think it's important to understand better the context. It's true that first, as an airline, we are really moving through a very exciting time, leveraging all those data. Yeah, Jen. We as an airline, we are facing multi type of experience and type of business. We are, sales, B2C, B2B. We are an industry with MRO. We are an operators. We are service deliverers. So many use cases, many opportunities to leverage those data, and we have also the chance to have lots of information and data from our operation, from our customers, either structured or informal information. So that's a big area where we may see lots of opportunities to leverage these informations and improve our efficiency and or also offer to our customers. So in that perspective, we are developing many use cases for dynamic pricing, for flow anticipations, for predictive maintenance, for operations monitoring. So that's big opportunities. But once we start to talk about, interacting with other companies, there the challenge is big because we are not in the same way, structured in the same way. And so we need to develop some, new way of thinking in the way we can build those kind of opportunities. And this is where I let the floor to Pierre.
Yeah, and the initiative EONAX has been to have all the travel operators in the same table to share the data and to create an IT platform to share the data without giving the heart of your business model, then to find the right level of sharing data, to have the same vision, to create the same vision, the same knowledge of the flow of passenger, of the way of purchasing, of the all data that we have a part of the knowledge in all our company, and then we need to share them to understand from the global perspective. And then EONAX is a platform where SNCF, Air France, ADP are sitting together to find the optimization. It will help to have a common database for dimensioning our infrastructure, maybe to create tools for the operation. We have an airport operation center focused on aircraft operation, and we need to enlarge it to train operation as well, to better understand the impact from one operation to the other, to help the clients when the train is delayed or the other side around, the plane is delayed. Then we need to learn from each other. You will have, it's a teasing, you will have a presentation of AONAX, I think it's tomorrow, with people from this new IT platform.
I think one of the main takeaways of this roundtable, definitely one of the main points will be that, close collaboration and having to speak to one another more and trying to find the right model. I'd like to just, about these technologies, more specifically, how do they enhance operational efficiency specifically?
If I develop some example that we may have in our specific context of Air France, so it's one of the major challenge we have as an airline is to be able, at D-Day, to be able to have the proper aircraft with the proper crew, with the proper passengers, and hopefully full passenger loading the aircraft. So all those synchronizations for preparing a flight require sometimes, a long, preparations. Sometimes when we talk about, having the proper crew, it means that you have 2 or 3 years before make the proper recruitment with the proper training. So all those synchronizations, of course, require lots of optimizations, lots of, also have a better. At each stage, you need to optimize all these inputs. So this is clearly a way. And I used to say that an airline by itself, it's just optimizing. You always optimize everything. So we know that, our margin, I will not cry, but our margin are quite low. So you need to optimize everything. So in that perspective, this is where we foresee, all those data and AI as a great leverage. And another, I think, important example is regarding luggage operations, for instance. That's a topic which is always quite interesting because that's something on which we know that our customers is really sensitive. You don't like to arrive at destination without your luggage. So in a transfer platform like Roissy Charles de Gaulle, it's thousands of luggage that are transiting every day. So lots of flow, lots of logistic to be optimized. And now, thanks also to the support of Aéroports de Paris, we have now very good monitoring of where each luggage is standing at each step of the process. So when you start to get all those informations, all those tracking of this operation, then you really can start to bring some optimizations in the way you organize all your handling activities. And you may also sometimes decide to wait or not some luggage in order to optimize also the departure of your flight. So this is typically some concrete example where we see lots of value for our operations.
So we still have some time on this panel, so I'd like to go back and dig perhaps a little bit deeper into this subject of cooperation. Airports, airlines, railways, often have different strategic priorities. What are the biggest barriers for deeper collaboration today? I'd like us to talk about Connect France, of course, that was signed, I think it was at Le Bourget. So I'd like to talk about that, the partnership also with SNCF. But first I'd like to turn to Chris on this question. So how can we overcome these barriers of deeper cooperation?
I'll talk to 2 points on this. So specifically about Heathrow Express, one of the challenges we have in comparison to our other railways is the way in which railways are run in the UK. So the Elizabeth line and the Piccadilly line, they serve the airport and there will be people travelling to the airport on there, but they are largely public railways for people to use to go wherever they want. So it's quite difficult for them to tailor their service primarily to an airport service. Conversely to that, Heathrow Express because of the way regulations are set up in the UK and the way in which the environment we operate in, we have to operate as a railway, but our passengers are not rail passengers. They're passengers that go on a train, but they're actually airport passengers. It's a thing I'm trying to bring in since I've joined is people's holiday, it starts in Paddington. It doesn't start when they arrive at the airport. It's an extension of the airport. That's the idea. And the difficulty I have with that is if you're buying a ticket from Heathrow Express, yes, you can use our app, and yes, it looks nice and you get a fancy barcode. But all of the back end of that is me having to integrate with existing rail technology in the UK, which is not set up to serve airline passengers. It's set up to serve commuters essentially, and it's very difficult in our case. That is one of our big challenges that we are working to overcome. And then the other one is just the way in which Heathrow Express and our capital projects are funded. I need to be very careful on this one. But in the UK, so Heathrow is a private company. Heathrow Express, again, is a separate legal entity, but we are owned entirely by Heathrow. For all intents and purposes, we are the same company. Any capital we spend on any investment is regulated by the Civil Aviation Authority, a government body, and through that, airlines have a say in what Heathrow can spend their money on. Therefore, they have a say on what I can spend my money on. And sometimes there is a bit of a misunderstanding or a disagreement between what airlines want the airport to spend their money on and what I necessarily need to spend my money on. So the challenge for us is to work more closely with the airlines and work more closely with the CAA to help them understand that investing in the airport is not just baggage systems, it's not just security, it's about how you get people to the airport as well. How do your passengers actually arrive there? So that is one of our biggest challenges, but it's also an opportunity for us. And at the minute, we're currently negotiating for our next regulatory period, which will be 2027 to 2031. And it's going really well. I'm looking forward to being able to spend a bit more money on my trains.
Erin, on this question of how to overcome these barriers for deeper cooperation.
Well, we are, unlike many of the, I think probably both of the airports represented, we are not a fortress hub, so we have more than 70 airlines, and no airline controls more than 12-13% of traffic. So the challenge for us really is that it's a tremendous operation just to communicate with and exchange information with that many airlines, none of whom have as much leverage as perhaps Air France might, or the airlines you described. So for us, it starts and ends with communication before you even get into negotiation over greater efficiency, and it's a very significant challenge, and one that we haven't always been great at. You know, LAX is essentially 8 little airports stapled together and owned or controlled by different entities, many of which have not spoken, don't speak regularly, and the infrastructure can be quite challenging. You know, this wall might be controlled by 4 different companies. The window is cleaned by the airport, but the airline controls the wood shutters, and a different airline controls the signage, right? It's very, very complex. So we need to do a better job, first of all, just communicating whose job is what, and who is responsible for fixing it. Once a sign falls down, you call the wrong company and it doesn't get done for a week, right? Like, those are the challenges that we have. And like I said, as a public agency, we're probably a little bit behind, but we have the opportunity to leverage some of the new data to really improve the operational efficiency and hopefully the passenger experience as a result.
So Christian, tell us more about the Connect France partnership, and what opportunities does it offer in terms of the challenges that need to be addressed that we just spoke about?
First, I think it's important to just have in mind what are the key conditions to make these ambitions of creating intermodality a success. The starting point is that we are talking usually of 3 main parties. I mean, railways like SNCF in France, airport, Groupe ADP here, and airlines, Air France. And obviously, we have 3 companies with different business model, different also, objective and ambitions. And usually, intermodality is at the very peripheric of their main focus. So that's the starting point. So what is really important is first to start to develop a joint vision, a joint ambitions of why we consider jointly that developing intermodality is key in our global position in an ecosystem where at the end the passenger indeed will choose, but we need to be able to be present for some of these expectations that will be also driven by the evolution of the regulations and also the sustainability target. So the first one is the vision. Then at the end, because each of the topic we have developed in terms of operation, in terms of a seamless journey, require lots of detailed implementations, and such a topic at the end need some kind of top management focus on steering. So this is where also we are lucky to have been able to put in place between our three companies the proper platform, and Connect France is indeed one of these platforms that in particular as part of the our 10 or 12 key priorities, intermodality is one of them, and create a proper focus of our CEOs of all companies to really steer all what needs to be done to deploy this activity. And at the end, of course, the execution is key. And this is where we need to be clever, like we have been developing previously with a kind of IT platform, could be a kind of solutions.
Pierre, I can see you nodding.
Yeah, and once you have the vision, common vision, and it's a day-to-day work to keep this trend and the common vision, we need to work together. I'll take again the example of the train station, CDG2 train station. We share the ownership with SNCF. Then we need to make a huge transformation of this infrastructure, and then we need to closely cooperate to share the model, to have the same vision concretely, what will become the train station in 5 years. And then it's a close cooperation. We have a partnership at the highest level with SNCF, and we have also all the working group to ensure that the technical aspect, technical evolution of the train station are going on the right direction to fit at the end the expectation of the customer, because it's our only driver at the end.
So we'll be talking about the ideal hub of the future in just a moment. I'd like to turn to you, Erin. We were discussing earlier all the opportunities that you have in LA to create, such an incredible. There's so much imagination, so many companies that you have around you. Despite their potential joint marketing initiatives, they remain quite limited. What successful examples have you seen, and how could collaboration in branding and promotion be scaled up? Of course, I'm thinking about Universal Studios, or there's so many possible examples.
Right. One of the things that our passengers tell us on surveys is that when they arrive at Los Angeles International Airport, they don't yet feel like they've gotten to Los Angeles, right? It's just it's a white, sterile, hopefully clean, not always clean, but hopefully clean and efficient experience, but not one that makes you feel like you've arrived in the creative capital of the world. Right? So our goal is to give our passengers, from the moment they set foot in the airport, the sense they've arrived in Los Angeles. They want a celebrity experience. They want to be treated as though they are, in Hollywood. They're on Rodeo Drive. They're at Universal Studios.
They want the stars on the floor.
They want the Walk of Fame. And we can provide that. I mean, we can think about how to improve our operational efficiencies by providing what they want, right? So you could Walk of Fame them right up to the train station, right? And hopefully then they'll use the train. So we are looking for to develop the marketing partnerships with those iconic partners like the ones you've mentioned that are known the world over, right? The Oscars, Hollywood, you name it, the Disneyland, whatever it might be, to give passengers a little bit of the experience when they come to the airport. Many of our international passengers come 3, 4, 5 hours early for their flight and have a lot of dwell time that we could capitalize on. Some of the airports in the United States do a better job of this than others. Orlando, which is sort of built around the mouse, you can buy all your souvenirs there. You can buy your tickets. You can sort of, it's almost one-stop shopping. And we need to have a experience that is more like that, but feels very authentically Los Angeles through these joint marketing partnerships. We're not there yet, but we will be by the time the Olympics come.
So 2028 then. So I'd like to know, how do you see things going forward? What would be your ideal hub of the future? What does it look like in terms of connectivity, in terms of passenger services or infrastructure design?
Hopefully what we presented to the public in the 4 or 5 last months. I think we have a huge ambition in terms of customer experience in the airport. Historically, it's our DNA to have the better journey for our clients, for the connecting traffic. And now in our new development, we have the same ambition for the train to plane air rail connecting traffic. And I think it's a real move, because at the end it's a choice of the customer, and then we need to make this choice possible by the highest standard of experience that we can give to all of them. Then all our efforts are to have the right condition to offer to all of our clients at the end.
Chris or Christian?
Well, talking about airport of the future or airport of our dream, I think we can talk hours, because an airport is like a city. Possible. So I think designing an airport is really something very interesting. And first of all, I would like to say that we are used to talk a lot about the customer experience, but let's do not forget, and I know that Pierre do not forget that first, airport is also there to accommodate operation on aircraft. So I think a good airport is also an airport that is really efficient for the airside operations and also for the customer's experience. Furthermore, it's clear that more and more we see the airport as a connecting, multi-connections type of platform. Well, sometimes dreams are happening, because regarding Paris Charles de Gaulle, I think we were looking forward to get an efficient connections with Paris cities. He used to arrive for the 2012 Olympics, because as you know, Paris was applying for this Olympic game in 2012. London get it, but we didn't get the CDG Express. Then we apply for 2024, and we miss a little bit the CDG Express, but now it's happening. I think we have been never that close to it, and it will be there for LA Olympics, so that's dream is coming.
Which is a good thing, because we applied for the 2024 Olympics, which you got, but if we'd gotten them, our train would not have been ready, so it all works out.
Will your train be ready?
The train will absolutely. The train will be ready. It is our great hope by next summer for the FIFA World Cup. Hopefully you'll all come and see a game.
Chris, on this question, how do you see the airport of the future? And perhaps also, but I think you all agree on this, what do you think would be the single biggest driver? Is it indeed, I think you've all said passenger experience, without, of course, forgetting why an airport is an airport, but...
In terms of the perfect hub, I'm going to back the Heathrow expansion proposal that we submitted to government recently as a hub itself. Speaking more widely, speaking in terms of the railway in the UK, another major project that's ongoing, slightly delayed, slightly over budget, but is happening, is HS2, the new high-speed line up the west coast of England. And one of the stations that will be calling at is called Old Oak Common, and that is situated in a position where 2 of the services that go to Heathrow can maybe stop there, not committing to whether or not they will, but they potentially will. If that happens, what that means is we can expand the reach of Heathrow Airport all the way up to the north of the country. So that's, I can't remember what the metric is. There's a figure we're aiming for. I think it's to have X percentage of the population within 1.5 hours of Heathrow Airport. But if this link with Old Oak Common does indeed happen, we're able to give people, if not in the Midlands, potentially even the north of England, to be within 1.5 hours of Heathrow Airport. So that massively grows our own market, but it also improves the transport prospects for people around the UK, particularly those who want to fly on British Airways, because the vast majority of international BA flights do go from Heathrow. So I think that just on the whole proposal is the great thing, is the main thing. I think if we're talking about what the main driver is, I've got 2 views. It's what the customers want. I should know this, it's part of my job, but I genuinely think one of the big, well, on that, I wish I had a crystal ball, I could make a lot of money. Where I think they're genuinely going to go, in the UK, the economy's not in a great place. I think cash is king at the minute. It's the price considerations. That's what people are thinking about. And if public ownership, which, for those who are unaware, in Britain, the new Labour government are taking the majority of railways into ownership by the government in the effort to make them essentially run by one organisation, more efficient, therefore cheaper. If that's passed on to rail passengers, I can really see that will be a huge driver in getting more people using trains to come to the airport. I really hope it works out, but we will see.
Okay, well, coming to the end of this discussion panel, I don't know if anybody in the audience has a question for one of our panelists. If so, please do raise your hand. Sir, in the back, we're going to bring you a microphone, and if you could please tell us what your question is and who you're directing the question to.
François Delétraz, Fédération nationale des usagers des transports. Quelques petites questions. Monsieur Jones, Heathrow Express. If I have a ticket for Heathrow Express, can I use Elizabeth Line or vice versa? Second, what's the decrease of use of Heathrow Express since Elizabeth Line opened?
No, you cannot. That is a sticking point with passengers, but as we are not owned by Transport for London, we are essentially a separate private organisation. We do not allow that cross-flow of passengers. In situations of extreme delay or disruption, we don't always, but if it's really bad, we will sometimes allow passengers to switch between services, but not always. And in terms of reduction, so as I say, we're around 7 or 8% or 6 or 7% of mode share to the airport at the moment. I think we were closer to around the 9% mark previously. So it's been quite a big hit, but what I have seen is it's stabilised. There was an initial ramp of passengers moving from us to Elizabeth Line. However, while Elizabeth Line ridership is growing, which is great for the airport, it's great for mode share, it's also not impacting me anymore. So that's left me with my customer base that I can now focus on and try and deliver an even better targeted service to them as well.
Two questions for Monsieur Abraham and one question for Air France. Monsieur Abraham, je vais la poser en français, vous traduirez. Qu'est-ce que vous avez fait pour empêcher la tarification exorbitante des transports en commun pour l'aéroport de Paris et d'Orly, de Roissy et d'Orly? À Madrid, on est à 3 €, à New York, on est à 8, et à Paris, on est à 13 plus 2, 15. Et deuxième question, comment vous faites quand un opérateur qui vient à Charles de Gaulle décide de réduire l'offre drastiquement, comme on l'a vu il y a quelques années entre Bruxelles et Paris, alors que vous l'utilisiez pour faire des trains d'apport?
First question concerns the fare for public transportation from center of Paris to the airport, which is 13 euro only, not 13 plus 2. 13 euro. It's sure that it's a big driver to facilitate for everybody. Of course, we have exchange with the operators, but we don't have the hand. Then it must be the right balance. We still are lobbying, and we will prefer reduce fare, but we also need to ensure the stability, the sustainability of this offer, to ensure that all the development of the offer is sustainable for the long term to access the airport. Of course, we have a specific focus for our own staff to have a lower fare, for instance, to access the airport. I think your second question was about the Brussels to Paris feeder. If I well understood,
it's the fact when an operator decides to reduce the offer to Charles de Gaulle or to Saint-Exupéry or whatever, and normally you have many passengers using the train to come to the airport. If the operator reduces the number of trains, you can't use it anymore.
Yeah, we are less lobbying on that part, and I think it's also on Air France side where they were selling this offer with connecting possibilities between the train from Bruxelles to the air from CDG.
Well, I will not talk on behalf of SNCF, because in that case, talking about Lyon-Saint-Exupéry in terms of train, it's of course their responsibility. But generally speaking, and I recognize your question, which is the fact that sometimes we see some routes where we may decrease seat availability or frequencies. But at the end, I think everybody will recognize that if the demand is not there, at a certain stage, it's true that we can't afford anymore to keep some level of frequency or some routes. That's at the end the customers that will decide in a competitive world. And so I recognize your questions, because that's the kind of question we may have on some domestic destinations. So we try to accommodate as much as possible, but at a certain stage, if the demand is not there, we can't have our aircraft flying with little passenger on board. Nobody will understand.
Which makes the link with your first question. It's the balance between fair economic sustainability of a route. At least on a airport perspective, we see that the traffic is continuing to grow, and we still have 50% capacities from the network to have additional offer. And our role, our first role, is to ensure that the facilities are there to reinforce the operator to come here in CDG. And I think we have our role to adapt our infrastructure for this kind of traffic.
Thank you very much. We have another question from the sir on the left here.
Hi, Mark Walbrin from Chicago. Quick question. I had heard during the tour that there would be a first-class car on the CDG Express similar to Heathrow Express. What type of amenities or differential would the car have, and what type of fare difference, like twice as much or 50% more?
Yeah, I think you have a dedicated time on CDG Express with the right people around the table. And I'm sure they will answer you better than me on that.
That's right. Starting at 3:30, we're going to have a short coffee break, and starting at 3:30, we'll have a roundtable around two very exciting programs, le Charles de Gaulle Express and the Grand Paris Express. So we'll be able to really dig further into those questions in just a moment with those people. So if you can stay with us for that. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Ma'am, in the back. If you could state your name.
Bonjour, Laetitia from Access Rail. This is a question for Air France. I was wondering whether you have been thinking whether or not there was a possibility to have some code sharing with other potential railways like Trenitalia or Renfe, or just considering continuing with just TGV.
No, I think it's an interesting question. It's true that looking ahead and looking at the longer term, we are indeed contemplating the fact that we want to go further in terms of intermodality. Of course, today there are lots of focus put on our French destinations, leveraging as much as possible what could be done with SNCF. But furthermore, taking into account also that the railways will enter more and more into new entrant, including in the French market. It's clear that we see some other stations or other destinations that are at 3, 4, 5 hours from Paris to be also considered in our overall mapping of the connections. So in the longer term, we know that throughout Europe, this topic will become more and more important for multi-connections between railways and airlines, definitely.
We still have a little bit of time for more questions. Any questions?
Thank you very much. This is Patrick Hicks from IRO. But my question is slightly at Chris, but maybe generally people can ask. So I bought a ticket, EasyJet, everyone does this, you buy a ticket. First of all, how much you're going to pay, what flight do you want to take? Next question is, can I upgrade the seats? Next question is, how many bags are you going to take? Then what do you want to eat on board? Then which hotel are you going to stay at? then do you want to rent a car? But the question they never ask is, do you want to buy a ticket on the train coming from the airport? And I'm guessing that this is something you at Heathrow Express have discussed on many occasions with airlines, is somehow bringing in Heathrow Express booking system into the airline.
Yeah, you're entirely right. And there's two reasons for this. Believe it or not, the vast majority of people who arrive at an airport or are departing from an airport, they decide on the day of their flight how to actually get between their home and the airport. Or, yeah, it's about 70% of passengers decide on the day. On the getting into the booking flow, that is something we really want to do. We have done with, I believe, one airline historically. We were on Aer Lingus's booking flow. However, they updated their back office system and it's no longer compatible with our API. We're working on fixing that. And it's a similar story with a lot of airlines. A lot of airlines that serve Heathrow, they're updating their IT systems, so they don't want to invest in bringing our API systems in now. But it is something we're actively working with airlines on. We're not directly in the booking flow, but what we are doing, I mentioned earlier, was targeted advertising. So at the minute, if you go to JFK, I think the airport that's in DC, and then some Asian airports, we have Heathrow Express advertising because we know a large number of passengers will travel to Heathrow. Then also, if you're on a Heathrow-bound British Airways flight, I think this may have ended now, it may have been extended, but all of the advertisements between movies were Heathrow Express adverts with a link to book, and if you try and join British Airways Wi-Fi, it also tries to get you to buy a Heathrow Express ticket. So it is something we're working on, but we're kind of waiting for the technology to catch up with us, which is very strange for the railway in Britain. Usually we're behind, but...
Well, thank you very much. We're coming to the end of this roundtable. I'd like to thank warmly all of our panelists. I think we can give them a warm round of applause. Thank you very much.